Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to yet another live show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is your host, Lord Hellespawn V, your favorite pseudo intellectual, and I'm here live with you to talk about the new Tudor release. We have started teasing it since last night, and I wanted to take a look and see if we're in fact right, if we are in fact going to see a new Tudor Ranger, and whether we will be actually satisfied with the new release. I'm seeing in the background the countdown. Now we have less than 10 minutes left, about 6 minutes, so to speak. So let's pull it up and start refreshing it together. The heading of the day remains Tudor roughs it in Greenland. And this is the 70th anniversary of the British North Greenland expedition. Hey, Stefan is here. Mike, David, thank you. Thank you so much for your PayPal contribution as well. I really appreciate it. Mike, David, Stefan, and MLMJ here. It's lovely to see you all. Guys, those contributions help us stay afloat, help us stay in the game, help us stay independent. So much appreciated. And now we will wait patiently. I won't pull up the leaked photo. I'll try to actually think about what comes. And when it comes to the leak, of course, what we saw was just a new Ranger, which hadn't been discontinued for so long to begin with, right? Which had only left the lineup a couple of years ago. It was at the time Tudor Heritage, 41 millimeter in 39 millimeter, just as Rolex Explorer, of course, was recently discontinued in 39 millimeter, along with many other Rolex releases in 39. So this is exciting indeed. My friend, also Brian Harkin, is in the chat, I see. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. People are trickling in again. It's early morning here in Los Angeles. It's 7 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's almost 1 a.m. in Central Europe. And we're gonna learn about what Tudor has in store for us. Of course, until then, we can quickly take a look at what they had released in Watches and Wonders. They had released a new GMT watch in Black Bay Pro, Very beautifully sized, quite classical proportionally. And it's really, I think, a great watch and great deal for what it is on the steel bracelet. Of course, they also came out with a two-tone GMT, a bimetal GMT watch, which people likened to the historical root beer. Right, I think that's a nice one as well. Although I'm not necessarily so enamored with Tudor's execution of the two-tone of anything in gold, honestly. And there was also a whole series of new black bays in 31, 36, 39, and 41 in two-tone, as well as a two-tone black bay chrono that joined the lineup of Tudor chronos that have been quite popular and that have a column wheel automatic chronograph movement that comes Tudor's way by way of their collaboration with Breitling. So now let's see, with a little more than a minute left, what Tudor will release for us. And in Ireland, Brian says it's almost 12 here, and Tudor is still for my blood. It says, El Profesor, how are you doing?
Ah, buenos días.
Buenos días. ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal? Tal.
It goes, yes. So it's only 30 seconds now. Do you think the leak was right? Do you think it will be a new Tudor Ranger, Professor?
I think so. Because it's related to the Greenland, expedition, and expedition reminds us of a bit the Explorer one and all that. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Right. All right. Let's refresh. Watch Family Ranger.
Ah, there we go. Yes, the leak was correct.
Indeed it was. And you have a entry level at $3,050 with the manufacturer caliber, right? The outgoing Ranger at 41, Ranger Heritage, had still an ETA caliber.
Lord, I like
Yes,
this
sir.
watch.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
The looks of it, I like especially the seconds hand. It has the red, um,
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of the hand,
Tip.
or maybe red tip,
Yes.
which makes it unique. I've never seen this before.
And, this time we have, of course, in renders, it looks a little less muted. That whole tint of the luminous material that we thought looked maybe a little too much like a fake patina, fauxtina, so to speak. But I think this is a cool piece. I like it, and I'm glad it's out on 39. I wonder what case they used. I'm assuming it's quite similar to the Black Bay 58 case. I'm pretty sure it's just that, in fact, just with a different bezel, different dial. No?
I
Don't
like
you
the
think?
clasp. I like the clasp a lot.
Mhm.
it looks nice. I like the clasp that doesn't have, Tudor has these, levels uh, of kind of adjustment that the Pelagos has, and this
Mhm.
is a purist kind of bracelet, and it kind
Mhm.
of moves towards the GMT look. I'm looking at mine, and it has these two lines where the two sides of the clasp meet, and
Mhm.
it looks a bit like the Rolex, but it's okay. They're cousins anyway, first cousins, probably
That's
brother
right.
and sister.
That's right. And
Power
I think
reserve is 70 hours, not bad at all.
it's exactly the same movement as
Yeah.
the Black Bay 58. So it's
Mm.
manufacturer caliber MT 5402, COSC certified and chronometer certified. 70 hours power reserve, almost 3 days. It has that domed sapphire crystal, which gives it a more vintage feel, I'm sure, in person. I'm gonna try to go at the end of the day tomorrow. Well, today now, to see if they have it in the boutique. Actually, I doubt it, but hey, maybe I should give them a call before I do. It's not too far, but I'll take the trip. And this is what I saw, by the way. It has a different um, beveling or chamfering, I should say, on the lugs. Did you pay attention to this picture?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some that part is the clasp is rough, brushed and or not brushed, but it's what they call it. It's kind of well, the different texture of the steel. One is brushed, the other is not.
And like Turkey Vulture says here, they fixed the end links and it has an adjustable clasp. Yes, it does have the adjustable clasp right here. It has a non-riveted bracelet, by the way,
Mm.
right? Which is something that sometimes people were complaining about when it comes to Tudor. This could also show a different kind of direction for Tudor, but I think it might be just limited to this watch when it comes to the bracelet. I think at least for the time being, because like you said, Professor, it's largely a watch that expresses a kind of simplicity, just like the Explorer line has always done for Rolex. Um, so it fits with that design, the smooth bezel, just the simple Arabic numbers at quarters, and an uncluttered dial, no date indicator or any other complication of the sort. Just like you said, the red tip of the seconds.
And it's the first time.
Quite simple.
Yeah, it is. And what I'm looking at, it's that Tudor continues to use the domed crystal, which
Hmm.
um, Rolex never uses. So even on the crystal, they're kind of very advanced. I mean, domed, of course, helps the fact that doesn't attract a lot of scratches because it,
Hmm.
takes them out. I mean, takes them out. It kind of pushes them out.
Yeah, yeah. So it's I mean, also for me, it also enhances that vintage aesthetic because, as you know, especially the
Mm.
the no date plastic crystals, of course, were absolutely domed and sometimes even excessively and extravagantly so in Rolex. Of course, they had their counterparts with the Cyclops, the so-called top hat, so still quite raised, compared to the more flat and smooth aesthetic of Rolex today. So in this case, again, I think this is quite similar to the one that Black Bay Pro has, and it really reflects light in a way that makes it a little more vintage looking. So I like that. They fixed the end links. Mike David says bye bye riveted bracelet and stepped links. Uh, it's it's a nice looking watch, and like you said before, of course, it every new Tudor release means something for the Rolex family of watches, because this is where Rolex experiments a lot of times. This is where Rolex more freely takes after their heritage and does something new with it. And of course, in a more concentrated way, this watch also means a couple of things for Tudor. First and foremost, I think finally they realize they can use different hands for different models, right? Whether it's an artistic, an aesthetic expression, or something more utilitarian, like using maybe simple stick hands in their chrono. Hear us, Tudor. It will be more legible. Or maybe using like the Explorer 2 kind of blackened hands, for example, for the white chrono especially, right? And same thing with the dial fixtures. So you have some sort of contrast here. It's back to the traditional hands of the Ranger with that spare like hour hand and the red tipped seconds hand.
Would you buy this watch, or if Explorer 139mm comes out? That's the question. Would people opt for this more?
Hey, Ozzy.
Hey,
G'day.
Ozzy.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I didn't wake up for this, but I get up around this time anyway. So much fondness, moderate fondness, comes by way of Sovereign and Archie over at Horology Dungeon. They're talking about film right now. I was like, okay.
Okay. I didn't even realize that they were on, but they're in Horology Dungeon.
Yeah, they're on, but they're talking about not this. So
Okay. Would I buy this, Professor? I already have. If I'm gonna get a Tudor watch, and it might be soon, I already have my mind set on something similar but different, which is this. Just a short trip away here. I want to show you. Where are we?
Ozzy, the other day I spent 4 hours yesterday with Lloyd. You guys are, it's unbelievably difficult to do this 4 hours. I have to tell you, I was about to collapse after I finished this.
This is probably my favorite in the current lineup. So if I end up getting a Tudor watch anytime soon, this probably is it.
Oh, nice.
This is the bronze one, and first they introduced it in a 43 millimeter case, as you might know, Professor, and now a couple of years later, in a boutique exclusive edition, they have a full bracelet with it, as well as in their traditional 39 millimeter case size in a Black Bay 58, and it looks really great, both on the strap and on the full bracelet. And of course, being bronze, it also is going to patinate quite interestingly and distinctly over the years. So this is the Tudor I've had in mind. This is the Tudor that keeps me up at night, so to speak. I won't be able to sleep. But yeah, you see again that lovely distortion that the domed crystal generates. So I
Very nice.
generally do love that they use that. But going back to our family of Ranger,
Are the indices luminous on the 39 on this one?
on the Ranger,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost guaranteed.
yeah, yeah.
If we can look at the inside. So
Well, let's see. They
Yeah.
also actually, by the way, one of. Go ahead, Ozzy. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, this video is really awesome.
It's time to make the right choice of what to bring with you out there. First, get rid of the unnecessary items. Hold on to useful, reliable, and robust instruments. Second, these guys came here long before you. Learn from their insights and experience. If cracking their way across the ice of Greenland turned out to be tricky, these trucks proved that good gear is essential. If cold out there was a bitter minus 66.1 Celsius, their conspicuous, cheerful spirits proved that good leadership is key. If exploring the ice cap 300 kilometers north of their base camp seems truly remote, these airlift resupplies proved that timing is crucial. Instruments have changed. Thanks to their exploration, our knowledge has progressed as well. Their tools and equipment were the finest of their generation. Yours are too. Only one thing hasn't changed at all. Their watch was a Tudor. Dare to start your journey on the strength of yours. Tudor, born to dare.
Professor, you have seen towards the end, right? There was a little glimmer of loom there for the entire.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that was just that tiny bit. I want to see.
I'm
Yeah, go
really
ahead.
digging it. Like it's sort of gotten a sort of the Air King style treatment where you're taking the more robust case rather than the sort of more oyster style case. It's obviously 39, but with the sort of the the diver style case, it sort of makes it very robust. It sort of reinforces its tooliness, if I want to say that. It's pretty cool. I have no idea why they've removed the faux rivets. Is this just a love letter to all the people who won't buy a Tudor? I'm not sure. Remove
Okay,
the
so
snowflake hands and then remove the faux rivets. It's like, okay, what's your excuse now, guys?
Right. Also, by the way, I'm gonna say something quickly since this noticed this too. With Greenland in the background, I don't know why we had this faux Western music with the like whistles and everything as well. So that was interesting. I don't know why they chose that, but the ad was genuinely cool. And I like the way they juxtaposed at the end what accompanied the expedition at the time as a Tudor watch and what they have in store today. This is very cool. This I actually did sleep for about 2 hours, which is very nice for me. Alex Biz says yes, the tip of the second sand is burgundy according to the specs.
Burgundy. Does it look like a burgundy? I mean, I am colorblind, but it doesn't look like a burgundy.
No, it doesn't look like. Yeah, it just
my
looks.
only
red.
Yeah, my only zonk on it, not a huge zonk. I mean, I think definitely that photo that leaked was a horrible photo with a super wide lens, which sort of accentuated and extended the center of the dial and morphed it. But it does look a tiny bit vacant. I'm used to like the Pelagos, where you just got to fill up that dial with text. You just got to fill it up, guys. Like just like don't skimp out on text. Just load it up. Just keep going. Another line.
But
put another one on.
This is a little bit coming from the Rolex experience. They put the text on the bottom half of the watch, so maybe they want to distance themselves from putting a lot of stuff at the bottom end. and make it more kind of, plain.
I don't think
and this is-
objectively there's anything wrong here with the amount of white space. It's just obviously it looks a little different, and I think maybe this is something, especially because we're not talking about a huge watch. So in person, it's very hard for 39mm to look vacant, I think. So I think it'd be worth seeing this in person. But for
Than the previous
$3,000, I think
version.
they're doing pretty well here.
So would you buy this watch rather than the Explorer one if it ever comes in 39?
I think they've done a really good job again to not how would you say cannibalize each other. I would own the Explorer 36mm from Rolex, which I do have, and I could easily see picking this up because they look so different. One with applied indices, one with not applied indices, one with like this, meaty sort of diving Submariner style case or Black Bay case, however you want to put it, versus the more elegant oyster style case. Like the looks are so different that I'd have both, but I don't think there's much chance that Rolex will do a 39mm Explorer again. That was a dog, and people called it a dog, and yeah.
Honestly, I think Explorer in 36 is a beautiful watch. I do prefer that model exactly like that. When it comes to the dial, so this is even less cluttered than the previous version of the Tudor Ranger in Heritage, because that had like two lines more or less, because it said like self-winding and rotor. For me, again, it harkens back to an era of simplicity, where you had, for example, the no-date Submariners with only two lines, even all the way until 14060, where you didn't have to write everything on the dial. You don't have to write automatic or self-winding or chronometer certified. If it is, it is, right? We don't need to also know. Like, you don't have to write oyster perpetual date on every single dial.
And I don't think I've seen a watch that's a single line down there before.
Perhaps not. But what I wanted to say is I don't mean to completely disregard your approach, because one brand that I really do like, for example, in Erlangen und Söhne, with even the script they use in the dial, whatever they write and don't write, where they put it, they really aim something with it. They really try to achieve a design balance. So I understand, but in this case, I like that it's clean and with only a single line of writing.
Yeah, I think I get it. Like it doesn't take long to warm up to it. It's not that much vacant space, and it's kind of stark. You know what I mean? It's obviously a choice to have gone single line, and it's not even a big text. It's very modest in size. Yeah.
Eric says 39 is the right side for this, but that being said, it's a bit boring and not likely to pry money away from established enthusiasts. Maybe a great first watch for newcomers.
I think the impression of, say, the Explorer should be a bit boring, right? It's not. These aren't statement pieces. Your first impression of a Ranger or Explorer should be, it looks a little plain. That I think that, like, if it isn't that, then if there's too, I don't want to say excitement's bad, but for this watch, your impression should be very, very plain. But secretly extremely cool.
Yeah, I mean, also, this is the kind of watch that it harkens back to, right? Again, simplicity is key. But I do see Eric's point as well. Maybe it is a bit dull to generate excitement among people who already care so much about Tudor. except people like Ellen, who have always loved the Ranger, right? So we shouldn't neglect that. But I think ultimately, yeah, it could be a great first watch for someone who's looking into this segment.
I'd love to hear from someone who's like a genuine Ranger fan. Like, does this hit the button, or have they gone too different? It's so there's so many things here that are unexpected, even from Tudor. So going up to 39 millimeter, using the diver case instead of, you know, more oyster style, you know, elegant shaped case. The single line of text, ditching the snowflake hand, no faux rivets. There are so many elements here that they've eschewed to I don't know. It's as if they've said, let's try and make this watch as good as it can be. You know, as in, like, you know, what are the marks that they want to hit with it, and they're not worrying about the fact that they're part of a wider brand of Tudor. As in, this watch is not influenced really by any of the other watches in Tudor's family. Like, it doesn't pull the BB Pro's 3D indices. It doesn't throw in a snowflake hand for either the hour or the second hand. It it doesn't pull the faux rivets, which has been a staple of every Tudor watch in the last, you know, 10 years almost. It's really, really interesting. By removing the faux rivets, they sort of modernize it, and then everything else is like, it goes way back. No applied indices. It's really wild.
Well, I mean, you know, the thing is also, of course, with all those surprising developments, and this is what made the elimination of the Ranger thing. That's what the earlier elimination made me think, right? You know, maybe they're streamlining everything, right? Everything has to have the snowflake hands. Everything has to have basically the similar case shape, so on and so forth. But ultimately, I think the way they brought it back with the traditional handset of the Ranger, right? The same hour hand, the same seconds hand. It may be something encouraging, right? Maybe they are trying to now have different models that will be decorated differently, that will have different dial configurations, different handsets that express maybe some different aesthetic, but also some other kind of utilitarian purpose as well.
Hey, look, if this is not super popular, that makes me happy. It means it'll be a soft watch in the case that I can pick up. So that I think I really like it. I like it maybe more than the Black Bay Pro, maybe just a little bit. We'll see. I'd have to see both in person, you know, to make final judgments. But I'm pretty happy about this. I'm pretty happy about this. Like, it's to me, it sort of received a little bit of the Air King treatment. You know, you throw the more diver case onto the watch with the crown guards. They sort of beefed it up, made it more tool-like and more practical. They've done that here. Obviously, this doesn't have the crown guards, but it's obviously a more substantial tool watch. Is it literally the same movement as the Black Bay 58?
Yes, sir.
The MT5402. That sounds familiar.
That's it. Yeah. This is the same one that they use in the Black Bay 58 series. I think that much was expected, honestly, because again, there was no other reason to kill it off except to streamline certain things. But yet again, what surprised me is that they haven't streamlined everything, right? The watch has a different bracelet to begin with. It has basically the same I mean, yeah, it doesn't have the rivets, right? So, and it doesn't. It basically has the same dial layout, except of course in smaller proportions than the older Ranger. I think the older Ranger
Doesn't
is
appear to have T-fit, right?
what was that? Sorry.
Doesn't appear to have T-fit.
I think.
Doesn't look like it was mentioned anywhere.
Let's see. I think it did. Yeah. Look.
No
T-fit
way.
Yeah.
For $3,000. Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
That's really cool.
And what was I saying? I think the only difference, again, in terms of the aesthetics of the dial from the previous has the shield rather than the rose. I think that still had the rose, and it said, rotor self-winding, where it said Ranger. I think that's how it looked more or less. Yeah, and this is of course 39 millimeter rather than 41. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence, by the way, that Explorer 39 is gone and Tudor has a Ranger in 39.
I don't think that was potentially planned. They are only 2 years removed, but either way, this is really cool. Like I don't see someone saying, you know what, now I want this one because it's bigger. Just because it's bigger, they want this over an Explorer. But I think they could just want this, full stop. And there's a lot of people who, just simply will not touch the Explorer. That this, I could see it being appealing.
By the way, Tom A says, looks great. What's the thickness? I think you can expect it to be the same thickness as Black Bay 58. It doesn't specify anything on the page, but assuming that it has the same movement, a similar case, I think it's the same.
It looks like the Black Bay 58 case. I'm
Yeah.
trying to pull up a close-up of Black Bay 58, see if I can compare. There's a really good lug shot that you had, and it looks like the same case. Except we got an all brushed look. Okay, look at that. It's all brushed. All business. I like that. I like that a lot. So it's kind of, Pelagosy.
That's right. And
so if you look at there's no way this webcam's going to do it.
Wait,
the lug profile looks exactly the same, except we got full brushed look on that.
Yeah. That's your Black Bay 58, right?
Yeah, this is Black Bay 58. So it does look like the same. Looks the same to me. So Black Bay 58, bigger dial, bigger aperture with the sapphire.
Look what Tom A says. Aussie might trade my 114270 and go on a nice holiday with the difference. LOL.
That's not a bad idea. I think you can get a lot of money for the 114270 still. Hopefully. I don't know. Selling watches right now is kind of hard, but
yes.
Yeah. I was wearing the Pelagos today, but I might have to slap the Black Bay 58 on just to... It's going to be hard to argue that 39 millimeter is wrong here, but especially considering the case style that they have used. It's not using the more elegant style case, right? Like on the Explorer. So going with the more diver style look, but $3,000, man, that's really good. I mean, yeah, you get applied indices on the Black Bay 58. What else do you get? You get a bezel.
Yeah.
A crapper clasp. That's it, man. Like $1,000. $1,000 difference. Like that's And I liked all brushed watches. Like that's one of the things I love the most about the Pelagos is that it's 100% brushed. Oh, there's a little bit of gloss, a little bit of polishing on the side of the bezel there.
Mm-hmm. And this says it's a strap monster. It's it could be interesting. Speaking of which, by the way, Ozzy, I think of all the things you said about people who hate riveted bracelets, I think they will just try to swap this bracelet onto their Black Bay 58s, I think.
I've heard of. We'll see if that's possible. KC Timeshare did a really good video on the Black Bay Pro showing how they've made some perhaps unnecessary modifications to the end link to prevent you putting the Black Bay Pro bracelet on a Black Bay 58. The other thought I had was the bracelet on the Pro is $1,200 to order from RSC. Like, how much is this watch? Like $1,800? Add the bracelet. That's it. Coming with T-Fit is crazy. I don't know.
Yeah,
my concept of value must be ruined or something. Because this is with T-Fit. This is a lot of bracelet and clasp on a watch that has previously cost what $3,800. I think is the BB58 at the moment.
Should be something like that, but yeah, that's one of the added values. For example, on the bronze, right, which retails around 4,600 rather than 38, like you said. The bronze has the T-Fit clasp. But yeah, this is a very interesting proposition with the Tudor lineup, within the Tudor lineup. But I think it also, again, for those who had already liked the Ranger aesthetic, I think it offers a great alternative to explore as well, because some people just are, invested in the case diameter of their watches. So this might be a good option for them. The whole, man size, lady size crowd I'm talking about. But yeah,
I don't think there's a printed indices watch in all of Tudor's lineup. Very interesting choice.
I'm also very, very interested that in that information you gave, because the upcharge for the bracelet is like $325, and that was a similar amount for the Black Bay Pro as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that they would somehow try to sell it to you for $1,000 that's a little interesting for me, but not gonna complain too much.
Yeah. It's so pricey. It does make settling for the strap and maybe I'll get the bracelet later. It's like you got to go the bracelet, like you really do. It just costs so much if you change your mind.
And I think also going the other way is always possible. One thing that makes me feel, at any rate, less agitated about that is, especially with the boutique, which of course doesn't really get you a discount, they deliver pretty fast. I mean, our friend Wristwatchaholic basically got it in 2 days when he ordered the Black Bay Pro on the bracelet. So
he's a VIP though, right?
not in that boutique. That was
was
the first time he shopped there. Yeah.
Wow. I'm having second thoughts about whether or not Black Bay Pro is like my next Tudor. This is really cool. I mean, if I had to go down to one watch, it would be the Explorer 36. But, to that measure, I really like this look. And the Pen 15
Yeah.
doesn't look exactly Pen 15-y. I don't know. The character of it is not full Pen 15.
It's a little more spare-like here. It's true.
But and for anyone not knowing, Pen 15's our term. I can't remember who said it, but it's basically its level of phallicness is what we're talking about.
It's yeah, I will, but it's basically
the sort of
basically this guy.
the empty space is starting to really work with me. Like, it's cool. It is cool.
Already? Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's much attention. It's just so odd seeing one line. That's all. It is odd, but just as a look, it's cool.
Eric Else says, if I'm not mistaken, Tudor NATOs, and I think they're single pass too, so it's not like even NATOs, but in most cases at least, many companies are way too proud of their straps and bracelets to sell NATO straps for $300-400. Turkey Vulture says, I love it. And this says, I look in Discord, I posted a good live photo of the watch. Let's
I'll
see.
grab the link for you, Lord. There you go. The texture on the dial is nice. So you're going to matte as opposed to the lacquer dial on the Explorer. So they try to amplify the difference, but at the same time, it's got, the same heritage, the same DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. It's like Rolex in a parallel universe,
Yeah, this watch looks really great. The bracelet too, it looks pretty fun. I'm enjoying this. Boston Collector, welcome to the channel. It will be cool to put a nice 10 leather suede strap on this. I think that's a great vibe, right? Or like a distressed saddle, like they were presenting that vintage Tudor in the marketing material.
The only thing I can say is I'm not sure, but I think the actual pin placement on the Black Bay 58 case may leave quite a substantial gap between a strap and its and the case. I really dislike seeing much of a gap, but I've never tried it. I don't know.
Yeah, by the
Maybe
way,
there's pictures of someone doing that on a Black Bay 58. Let me try to find one.
OC is here. Let's see. By the way, this is the strap that I was talking about. If it comes up somewhere around here, yeah, like something like this, right? Maybe not excessively distressed as this one.
And welcome, OC. I always respect your opinion a lot. And
Tudor fans should like this. He says it's plain, simple, and inoffensive. Inoffensive like some recent other releases from other brands, right? And priced just right. And Yasha V says, thanks to Tudor Rolex for making me feel a tiny bit better for buying a 39mm Explorer a few years ago. The last of the last, I guess. That's my daily more or less. I think that's a great watch. Just because it may have been for various reasons kind of a blip in the history of that model, I don't think overall should malign that watch at all. I do prefer the Explorer in 36 as well. That doesn't mean 39 can't be a great watch for someone else.
It does have some elements that I do like on the 39. So while I love the lacquer dial on 36, the 39 is one of the few Rolex watches with that matte black still. And it does look really nice, especially if you put on a rubber bracelet as well. Like, so it's a little bit more versatile from that perspective. But I think part of the size and sort of makes it more utilitarian than the Explorer 36, which is okay. You know, Explorer 32 takes the utilitarianness to the extreme, but I think what I appreciate about the Explorer 36 is its versatility. That it's fine to wear in a nice high-end restaurant, and it's also fine to go out and wear it hiking and go tubing on a river or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. The other Boston Collector says, yes, the bracelet is a big step up for Tudor. And again, I think when I mean step up with this bracelet and the overall design language that they brought back almost in whole cloth from the Ranger they discontinued, of course, in a different size with an in-house movement, is that they can do different things, right? It doesn't have to be the riveted bracelet in every single watch in the lineup. It doesn't have to be the snowflake hand, although again, I think in Black Bay 58, the snowflake hand fits. I think that's become their signature. I don't expect them to produce divers that don't have the snowflake hand anytime soon. But in other watches, like in chronographs, like in this Ranger, for example, they should feel free to use different handsets. They should feel free to use different kinds of bracelets when it comes down to it. I think, again, the riveted bracelet is a great fit for the quasi-vintage aesthetic, pseudo-vintage aesthetic of the Black Bay 58 line, but it doesn't have to be Tudor's only option across the board. Boston Collector says, I think if they came out with a cream dial, this is what some were expecting, including me. I was expecting something with a white dial to begin with because of what I showed just a minute ago from that historic British Greenland expedition watch. Or even a waffle gold dial. This would be killer. Yeah, why not some dial options in the future, honestly? The original OC with the industrial design perspective again. The irony is Tudor has been criticized for over-reliance on BB in the lineup on the Black Bay. Then they took the BB58, changed the dial, bezel, and bracelet, and voila, new model. I mean, BB is really just the oyster case by another name. Let's put it like that. What Rolex calls oyster, Tudor calls Black Bay. What Rolex calls perpetual, which is the self-winding mechanical movement, Tudor has been calling self-winding simply. So it is what it is. I think that's a very empty criticism, anyways. But
no, OC is right, and I actually do appreciate this by Tudor. So OC says here, smart and efficient product development with significant impact. That's exactly right. It's what I've been trying to express with Professor over the last couple of times he's been on, is that there is a big difference between Rolex and Tudor when it comes down to manufacture. Like the choices that Tudor make are very, very efficient, but the downrange impact, sorry, these gun terms, the downrange impact is not less for it. So as an example, the crown, its knurling consists of simply just straight cuts across it, while the Rolex has multifaceted cuts, and they're all coming to a point that requires just an unbelievably high level of accuracy to do that repeatedly at high quality. And this design for Tudor here simply doesn't require that level of accuracy and tooling quality to be able to execute perfectly. But the result is not a watch that is even half as nice. You know what I mean? Their choices are very, very efficient, but they result in a watch that's still very pleasing for a customer. And I wouldn't say it's compromised. It's just sort of a very design for manufacturer approach. It's like if you have, like, for example, a Tesla Model 3 where they try to do modern styling, and yet all the gaps are all honky, wonky, higgledy-piggledy because they've gone with the modern styling without the design for manufacture of curved lines where panels have to, it's very hard to do 3D lines where the gap looks consistent through it, right? It's very, very difficult. They're not there yet, and they execute, and it's just terrible. Meanwhile, Tudor says, we can't put that much effort into these watches. We're going to deliver it to a price point, but we want it to look good. So they don't attempt to do things that would risk that, basically, where they go, where we're going to need like far better manufacturing than we're going to be able to afford.
Turkey Vulture says, referring to a vintage Tudor Ranger model, wonder if they will put a date on it next, like the Tudor 9050. I think not, because again, I believe they're mostly about differentiating within the line. I don't think Tudor has any real incentive of putting a date in some of these entry-level models. I know that's when it comes to marketing teams, they're dying to do that in every single watch. I don't think that's on the horizon anytime soon. I think they wanted to just again create a simple, uncluttered, utilitarian look. And it is quite elegant too, by the way, if you ask me. So not in the completely bare bones, no nonsense aesthetic of an Explorer, of a Rolex Explorer, but it still is quite elegant in its own way.
I've made it official. I put this on my list. I put it on my list. This is a far easier. I'm going to pull the trigger from the photos alone than the Black Bay Pro. The Black Bay Pro, the photos I've seen, the video I've seen, for the most part, its thickness, I'll talk about it. I'm not going to hide. Its thickness is its main, like, whether or not it will work for you. And I need to see that in person. And I really don't know about the Pro yet. I think if it does work for me, the Pro's still a better watch. But hey, there's like $1,000 difference here. Maybe the Range is the better bet either way. I mean, ultimately, I'll get the one that actually ends up, being able to be physically on my wrist first from my AD.
El Profesor is back. By the way, it's not no sleep. We actually ended the stream earlier. El Profesor, welcome back. Enhorabuena. We have gotten back to the saddle, basically. I slept for 2 hours and started exactly about 10 minutes before the release. This says, does the watch have Fotina? I think it does. I think it's a similar color to what the new Black Bay Pros luminous material looks like. And yeah, it does have a slight tint of that pseudo vintage aesthetic, for sure, whatever you want to call it. And Boston Collector says, I agree, OC, that they're trying to branch out. Tudor is trying to branch out and draw on the vintage. I think they're smart to go in this direction as opposed to Omega or Grand Seiko, their rivals who are going bright colors and modern. Fantastic. That's a good way to distinguish them, and I'm glad, Boston, you're paying attention to that as well. Tudor is more tried and true than hype. I think it has been, at least since the resurrection of Black Bay about a decade ago. In fact, it was 2012 when they came out with the Black Bay Heritage.
What competition exists in this price range? I mean, going down to 3,000 and with a strap, 2,700. Is that right?
You know what I like, Ozzy? You had just said in last night's stream, you said, I don't trust and I don't really value watches in that segment below 3,500.
It's true. It's getting very close to like that segment I'm talking about, and it
is in that segment.
3,050. It's technically above.
No, we were saying below 3,500. So it is in
No. You said 3,500. I said 3,000 because it's the document saying is anything below 3,000 CHF. You added the 500. Right, I don't know why.
Alex Biz says Diet Pepsi, Pelagos FXT, BB Pro. Who cares now? Tudor knows how to create a buzz. Hey, I was just saying that, this staggered release, Tudor used it very efficiently, because if they released this watch in Watches and Wonders, I think it could have gotten lost in the sauce, so to speak, because people were really interested in that so-called Steve McQueen, the Black Bay Pro, the JMP with the fixed bezel that I really like, that harkens back to the first Rolex Explorer 2 reference in 1655. But this is great timing, guys. I mean, we have already forgotten all the older releases, and now we're talking about the Ranger, which was a model that no one quite missed when it was discontinued, and now it's back with vengeance.
Hey, here's a good question. Is this better than the North Flag? I mean, the North Flag was really the last iteration that sort of harkened to this DNA. And I'm not sure if the design language could be more different.
That's right. Yeah, because the Tudor North Flag is the opposite of this pseudo vintage aesthetic, right? We are really talking about something quite futuristic, or maybe retro futuristic, like in a 70s way.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I agree.
This particular watch.
This is still a pretty cool watch.
I know you're a fan of this. I really wasn't, never. I do prefer the more muted, more simplistic aesthetic of the new Ranger.
I think the integrated bracelet is both a positive and a negative on this. It sort of, as you said, gives it that more 70s vibe, but it's also very, very modern as well, with just the everything on the dial basically is very modern.
Yeah, and this was a rather thick watch as well. You might say hefty or chunky in a more positive way, of course.
Maybe the power reserve was a little too cute. Wow, did they have a display case back? I guess they were very proud of their new in-house movement.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Is this the only display case back in the last 3 decades from Rolex or Tudor? That's crazy.
No, the ceramic one, the ceramic Black Bay
also
for
does
example,
one.
as a display. Yeah. Off the top of my mind, I think there's one more model that I might be blanking out on, but yeah, this used to be the North flag. Yeah, I'm with the new. Where is it? I'm with the Ranger.
I mean, if the FXD didn't come out last year, I'd be a little scared that Tudor have completely ditched their sort of modern aesthetic. But the FXD did come out last year, and the BB Pro is sort of playing a few decades ahead of where the this watch is playing for, and the Black Bay 58. So it's interesting. Like Tudor aren't solidly in one generation. They're sort of playing around with
Yeah.
an entire
I
lifetime,
think
like
we
70
have
plus years of history they're playing around with.
right. I think we have summed up this Aussie in the past that in a way they're doing two things at once and often a mix of both. On the one hand, they are kind of the archival arm of Rolex in the way they dip so freely into the archives and come up with their own iterations and interpretations of the classics. On the other hand, they are like the research arm of Rolex in the way they experiment with new materials, new ideas, from the left-hand drive case to experimentations with bronze, silver, titanium, ceramic. So it's really a little bit of everything, and usually, well, more recently, especially, the mix has been very potent and very appealing. Eddie says, "Dang, untimely marathon. I just woke up and still on." We had about 2-3 hour hiatus there. Boston says, "I wish that Tudor would make a modern dial with the same paint as the older Rolex model, so they will crack or age and fade with wear. Do you think collectors would embrace them more?" I think Tudor's, if Tudor has a problem, again, like you said, they're in a way they're really carving their niche in that particular segment of the market where they're competing against Omega, Grand Seiko, and some others. It was never not appealing to the collector. I think collectors love Tudor, right? Especially collectors who love Rolex usually love Tudor too, even if we would nitpick about this or that, about the thickness and about about the faux or fake aspects of the aging. Yeah, if anything, that's what we complain about. I think what you're describing could be cool maybe for a one-off model. It could be interesting, but I think it would eliminate a lot of the mainstream audience that Tudor managed to attract over the years and is increasingly attracting. Dan T, welcome back. I love the BB Pro and this new Ranger, but the size, unfortunately, doesn't suit me. I have an, oh my God, Dan T, I have an 8 3/4 of wrist. Okay. Well,
I can't argue with that. He's a man that needs the Black Bay Chrono. That's a pretty chunky date. That's a pretty chunky watch, but no person of 8 3/4 is like the Daytona suits me. The Daytona is 38 millimeter. So Black Bay Chrono, very welcome addition.
my Macedonian brother, Dan T, welcome to the channel. Brown G Force says, personally, that's a beautiful dog, by the way. Personally, I need a date. Hey, Brown G, that's how I entered the Archie Luxury universe, as you know. And here I am. Boston Collector, I think that if and when Tudor re-releases the blue Tudor Submariner with a blue bezel and dial, that will really bring people to the brand. I think they'll do it when the Rolex Sub is around 15K MSRP. What do you think, Ozzy? Will Tudor ever release, quote unquote, a Submariner, something with the traditional Rolex hands rather than the modern snowflake they have been using in Black Bay 58?
So it depends on your definition of what counts as being a Tudor Submariner. Like, how is the Black Bay not a Tudor Submariner? Is the main question. And if it comes down to the hands, Mercedes hands, I think it's basically a big no. They're not going to. I mean, how would that differentiate the watch as well? Like, you take the Black Bay 58, replace its hands with Mercedes hands, and change the name to Submariner. I just don't see that being a good release, because the Black Bay 58 Blue is blue dialed, blue bezeled, and so forth. So what about it is not a Submariner at this point?
I think at this point it's just the hands that people, or some people at least, are asking for, and I think it's just too much of a clash, too much of an overlap, too much of an infringement on the Rolex market then, and completely opposite. Professor has been indicating. Professor, what do you think would they ever do something like that? Something with,
you want to pull up the Black Bay
Rolex
58
hands?
while I've got the link there.
No, they will not.
Yeah.
As Rolex will not adopt any of the hands of Tudor. They do little things here
I've got
and
the link
there,
for you if you want.
but they
right.
will not. No.
Yeah, I don't see any issues here. This is an incredible release, and it's still 3,800.
It's a
if you
value
want a
for
date,
money.
maybe, I don't know.
It's a value for money watch. Having said that, one doesn't encroach in the territory of the other. Rolex will not go that far down, and Tudor will not go that far up.
But I mean, by up, what do we mean? Like, just replace a snowflake with a Mercedes hand? I mean, that's not.
No. They will
that
not go in the
interesting.
price segment. No, about the rest, it's only cosmetic.
Right, exactly. But I mean, to say that we're missing a Tudor Submariner, I'm not really understanding the lack of something here.
No, I think Tudor is very successful with what they're doing, and going back to the point about releases, the Swiss have realized, the watchmakers, that they don't have to all produce at Watches and Wonders. So what really gets, they understand now, people's attention is during the year to produce certain pieces that catches everyone's attention. The exception, of course, is Rolex, which doesn't do it. They do it all in one go, and they will continue to do so. But all the others, go around it, and they announce different models throughout the year. Yeah. I think it's a smart strategy, because it really captures people's attention like that. Otherwise, we'll all get bored up pretty fast waiting for April to arrive, and what happens.
Yeah, I think again, that's one virtue of the social media age in its relationship to the world of watches, because it allows most of the brands to have stagger, so they don't have to release everything all at once, and then wait until the next fair, next convention to have new releases. When it comes to this particular release, I think again, Eric was saying earlier, Eric L, that it's a little dull, right? I think in a good way, which I would say, simple, uncluttered, no nonsense. But it is the kind of model that would have gotten lost in all that noise of the new releases and Watches and Wonders. Now that Tudor had a separate release for it with an entire marketing campaign dedicated to it, and with the excitement that it rightly generated, I think it will find its enthusiasts much easier.
Boston Collector got back to us.
I mean, the other thing is that the relationship between Rolex and Tudor, So given this, what Tudor announced today, released today, would Rolex go ahead and produce a 39 millimeter Explorer 1? Most likely
I think
not,
this is your answer. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is your answer. I think. Well, I knew as soon as I got my Explorer 36 that they wouldn't do a 39 because I think it's easy to assume that Rolex may have just repurposed an OP36, thrown dials and hands, and call that the Explorer. But the reality is the OP36 is very different from the Explorer, and so to expect the OP41 to get the Explorer treatment is not going to happen. So I think Rolex, even from that point, were very committed to the 36 millimeter Explorer, with no illusions that another size would come.
Guys, by the way, we will keep it right at 1 hour and 30 minutes, so it's a little digestible, so people keep coming back to it. Just to read a few things that Boston said, something like this with the bezel design. He was talking about Tudor Black Bay 58 in blue. And the cutout look. If you sent a link, Boston, it won't come through. I can't even see it in the chat anymore.
I think I know what he's talking about. It took me a little while to decipher it. But
yeah, but
I think what he's
I need to describe this. When you send those things, I don't even see them. I don't even block them. They're already blocked because you don't have moderating privileges. So try to describe what you mean. Thankfully, Ozzy already understood. So take it away, Ozzy.
Yeah, so I think what he means is basically having a coin edge bezel as opposed to the straight cuts that Tudor are doing. I think the coin edge bezel would probably add $1,000 to the watch. Like the machining difficulty is exponentially harder. It's designed in an era where perhaps they were doing many of the movements by hand and the requirements of perfection were lower. To do that in a modern way, the way the Rolex Submariner does it, I believe that's very expensive. I think it would be too much. Like, it's just you would escalate the price of a relatively basic watch, basically. And the price difference between the Tudor and the Submariner is worth it. So I think Rolex/Tudor's answer would be just buy the Submariner if you really want the Submariner. Now, I guess there is still a gap with respect to whether it's more heritage inspired look is the main issue.
Well, I think, again, this is enough of a tribute, and this is as close as they will get, I'm sure, because the Marine Nationale, the kind of vintage Tudor Blue Submariner, did have the snowflake hands. And yes, it had it had a different bezel. It had a date, if I'm not mistaken, to begin with. So there are a few differences. And of course, it had its own periods bracelet rather than a riveted aesthetic that Tudor goes with the Black Bay 58 line. But I think, even before we think of it as an infringement or encroaching on Rolex's territory, I think they also wouldn't want to have that one-to-one reissue. They wanted to do something that is more in line with their current ideals and methods and practices of production. I think this is as close as it will get to that Marine Nationale sub. And now that they also have the current cooperation in the FXD, the fixed lug Pelagos, I think we'll have to forget about anything that comes closer to the vintage. And this is, by the way, Ozzy was describing the differences between OP36 and Explorer, and this is a picture where you can see
so
that.
I was lucky enough to get an OP36 for my wife for celebrate our daughter's birthday watch for her. And
Congrats again.
thank you. And you can see there's a really big difference between the two watches, both in impression and so forth. The Explorer is actually smaller in almost every way, but ultimately, I really like the Explorer. Like I do like that it's that little bit more. It's not as butch. While the OP36 reminds me a lot more of the 114-270, the 20 millimeter bracelet. The proportion of the dial to the bracelet width is kind of what all sets up the aesthetic there. Do you want to flip to the other side, and then when you get down to the taper of the bracelet, so the other picture is of the clasp and rear bracelet.
Oh, right, because it's in the Discord, right?
In private chat, I've sent 2 links.
Okay. Right, there you can see the taper of the bracelet a lot better. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so here you can see the Explorer 36 is like diminutive compared to the OP36. And then obviously you've got the safety clasp on the sports watch versus the OP. So very different watches ultimately. And so to expect an Explorerized OP41, the 39 millimeter watch, as confusing as that might be, I just don't think it's going to happen. It's like the Explorer 36 is every aspect of it is bespoke. And I think Rolex really care about the Explorer, basically. Like they wouldn't have gone to this effort if they were just going to do a part spin watch, basically.
Yeah, as they should, honestly. Again, I think, Explorer is one of those iconic models. Of course, it has its own aficionados. It's not necessarily the Rolex watch or the Rolex professional watch for everyone, but it is an icon. And Tudor Ranger, in a way, is a Tudor icon. So I'm glad they brought it back. I'm glad they brought it back in a size that offers an alternative to not only enthusiasts of the Ranger, but Rolex enthusiasts who might be missing the Explorer 39. Mac Rolex says, in opposition to this, I own and much prefer the discontinued 41 millimeter Heritage on the bracelet with full raspberry seconds hand and a nicer quote-unquote retro design. Also came with a complimentary camel fabric strap. And Boston says, thank you guys for covering the release. Great discussion. Thank you for being here, man. It's nice to see you. Yeah. Any last words, Ozzy, since we're trying to keep this right under an hour and a half? You're muted, I think, again, Ozzy.
Oh, dear. Yeah, it's interesting to go to the Tudor's homepage. The Black Bay 58 doesn't appear anywhere because they've just got so many good new releases. The Black Bay 58 just disappears.
That's right.
But also the tagline for the Ranger is the 21st Century Expedition Watch. And I kind of like that. It clearly is extremely heritage inspired, but they are still like, this is still a tool that you would use today. This isn't just a chintzy homage. This is what we think is a fantastic expedition watch. And I believe that with the way the case design is. I think the one curiosity is that why is this only 100 meters? it seems to bear all the part resemblance to every other black bay, but clearly is not a black bay from text. But it drops its water resistance down to 100. I'm wondering how that happens. It seems like 200 meters is the default for Tudor, and it's hard for them to accidentally drop 100 meters.
Right. I don't know either, because usually, if it had like a special bezel technology, for example, you could kind of explain it. But here you don't even have to intervene with that. That's interesting. It might be just, quote unquote, false advertisement.
Yeah, it's marketing.
Just to distinguish it. Because at the end of the day, they write the minimal, right? So when they say approximately 70 hours of power reserve, they want to say really it's 3 days, but they can't fully stand behind it. So they say the minimal, where it keeps time with accuracy and precision in terms of the power reserve. Same thing with depth rating. They can probably take a little more punishment than that, a little more pressure than that, but they are marked 200 usually. Here, I don't know, maybe someone from within the brand or from within the realm of watchmaking in terms of industrial production can enlighten us to that. But it doesn't make sense to me either why it is only 100 meters here. The water resistance, waterproofness. Yeah. Guys, so Rob Filmer says, great release. NB, appreciate all the work you guys put in. Great to listen while working in the morning. It's great to have you here, NB. Guys, please hit the like button if you have enjoyed the stream, if you have learned something from it. Please subscribe if you haven't. I very much appreciate you being here. I appreciate your help and support, your presence. Mac Rolex says, great coverage. NB, where's the super chat button on this channel? It's not monetized yet, NB, but there are 3 ways in which you can contribute. I will send the links directly. So there's PayPal, which is lordhellespontv@gmail.com. There's Cash App, which is $LHVV. And you can also sign up on Patreon in the link I just provided in the chat to make a more consistent contribution if you appreciate the content on this channel, or if you want me to increase, in fact, the amount of time that I can put in here and dedicate more time to producing quality content on this channel. Patricia Teague says, what a nice surprise to wake up to this. What a nice surprise to see you. Thanks for the new release video. Thanks. And thank you, Ozzy, for being here. Thank you, El Profesor. I think maybe you're experiencing a problem with your connection, but it's lovely to have you. So on the 70th anniversary of the British North Greenland expedition, for which the crew had Tudor watches supplied to them, Tudor came up with a new release with the re-release of their iconic Ranger, with an in-house movement in a 39mm case. We'll talk more about this release in the coming days and months, I'm sure, but it's at a very attractive price point, right around 3,000. And it comes with a new bracelet in a way, right, that doesn't have the 4 rivets and that has the T-fit adjustment clasp. There's something that can please anyone and everyone here, but I'm sure for some the aesthetic will be perhaps too simple, too dull, as one member of our audience said. But for me, this really represents, like Ozzy emphasized again, the tool watch aesthetic for the new century. It's simple, it's no nonsense, and it's really elegant in its own way as well. So congrats Tudor once again for almost upstaging its bigger brother, and perhaps in fact doing so.
Yeah, certainly a lot of people will want this over the Explorer 36. Whether or not they're really directly comparable, they've done enough differences here to warrant inspection of both and collection of both, to be honest. It's on my list. I've got the Explorer and this is on my list. It's really cool. I've really enjoyed the Explorer watches from Rolex, and the I gotta get the BB Pro in this watch. They've really, yeah, it's hard to say. Like, who's doing better from this heritage, Rolex or Tudor? I mean, maybe it's Tudor. This is very different to the Explorer, but yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, well, Ozzy, you really have to come to Los Angeles one day. I know things are hard at this minute in terms of the household configuration, but we can pay a visit to the Tudor boutique and the lovely people there in the Westfield Century Mall, and you can get to check out probably this model, the Black Bay Pro, and everything else in the lineup. So guys, this is a great option for anyone who enjoys the Explorer lineup and heritage in Rolex and Tudor. This is a great option for people who have been missing Ranger from the Tudor lineup. This is a great option for people who have missed out on the Explorer in 39mm case size. There's almost something for everyone, and there's also something that might attract first-time buyers of a Tudor watch as well, and perhaps first-time buyers of an affordable luxury watch at $3,000. Lovely to see you all, and I will see you later in the day tonight for the late show. Goodbye, everyone. Until next time.